You need to cancel a casual coffee date. It's nothing dramatic. You're just tired, your week has been a lot, and you genuinely need a quiet evening to yourself. Instead of just saying, I can't make it today, you open your phone and start typing. You explain that you slept badly. You mention your dog has been acting weird. You bring up the weird noise your car has been making and how you feel a headache coming on. You throw in something about a work deadline just to be safe. Then you reread the entire message 4 times to make sure it sounds believable, reasonable, justified. You agonize over whether the tone is too much or not enough. You delete a sentence, you add it back, you send it, and then spend the next 20 minutes wondering if they believed you. And somewhere in the back of your mind, a small voice goes, why do I feel like I'm on trial right now? If you just felt a knot in your stomach recognizing yourself in that, stay with me. Because what gets dismissed as being too talkative, insecure, or just anxious has a much deeper origin story than most people realize. And once you see it clearly, you will never look at your own explanations the same way again. Let's name what this actually feels like from the inside. You don't just state your opinion, you build a legal defense for it before anyone has even disagreed. You answer a simple, how are you, with a 5-minute backstory, because you are terrified of being misread. When you need to set a boundary, it feels completely invalid to you unless it's surrounded by a mountain of evidence proving exactly why it's necessary. I can't make it doesn't feel like enough. It never feels like enough. You catch yourself adding phrases like, does that make sense? And I don't know if I'm explaining this right at the end of sentences, preemptively taking the blame for any confusion before it can even happen. You over-apologize. You over-explain your apologies. You over-explain your over-explanations. The exhausting part isn't the talking. It's the constant, low-grade anticipation of doubt, the unspoken assumption underneath all of it, that your word, on its own, is simply not enough, that you have to keep proving to everyone all the time that you are a rational, reasonable, well-intentioned person who isn't trying to cause trouble. That is an unbelievably heavy thing to carry. Here's what is actually happening in your brain, and it has almost nothing to do with insecurity in the shallow sense of that word. Psychologists link chronic over-explaining to a trauma response, specifically a manifestation of hyper-vigilance. Your nervous system has been trained to scan for threat, anticipate judgment, and neutralize it before it arrives, through words. In psychology and recovery spaces, there is an acronym that describes this pattern perfectly. JADE. It stands for justify, argue, defend, explain. Over-explainers are caught in a nervous system loop of jading, constantly, reflexively, exhaustingly. This isn't a quirky communication habit or a personality flaw. It is a defense mechanism. It is a brain that, at some point in its history, learned that simply existing, simply saying no or I don't want to, was a punishable offense. Research also shows that chronic over-explainers tend to have intensely high cognitive empathy. They can model exactly how their words might land in someone else's mind, perfectly anticipate a misunderstanding before it happens, and immediately move to prevent it. It looks like consideration. It feels like anxiety. And it is, at its core, preemptive damage control. So where does this exhausting internal courtroom come from? It almost always starts in an environment where your reality was routinely questioned or dismissed. Maybe you grew up around gaslighting, where you had to provide undeniable, airtight proof just to be believed about your own lived experience. Maybe you had a caregiver, a parent, or a partner whose emotional reactions were volatile and unpredictable, and you learned over time that if you could just explain yourself perfectly enough, clearly enough, calmly enough, you might be able to manage their reaction. You might be able to stay safe. In those environments, your brain learned a core survival rule. My word alone carries no weight. I must provide evidence. I must justify my existence in this space. That rule was brilliant. It was adaptive. It probably protected you in ways you'll never fully know. The problem is that your brain took that specific survival strategy and made it the default operating system, not just for dangerous situations, but for all situations, for coffee dates, for work emails, for telling a friend you need to leave a party early. Decades later, you are still presenting your case to people who never asked you to. The defense mechanism outlived the threat by years. Here is where we have to be completely honest, because there is a hidden cost to this habit that most people never see. Every time you over-explain a boundary, you accidentally turn it into a negotiation. When you say, I can't help you move this weekend because I have a headache, and my laundry is really piling up, and I've just been so drained lately. You aren't just communicating a no. You are handing the other person a list of obstacles they can argue with. Oh, just take an Advil. The laundry can wait. You'll feel better once you get moving. The more reasons you give, the more material there is to push back on. And underneath all of it, you are quietly communicating. I don't fully believe I have the right to just say no. So here are my credentials. Please approve them. You train people, without meaning to treat your boundaries as opening bids in a negotiation. And you exhaust yourself in the process, trying to be perfectly understood by people who are sometimes, honestly, committed to misunderstanding you regardless. You cannot logic your way out of a nervous system response. Knowing this intellectually doesn't automatically rewire the pattern, but it is the beginning. What you can start to do is learn to notice the difference in your body, in real time, between sharing context because you genuinely want to bring someone into your world versus over-explaining because you feel that you have to earn your right to be heard. Real intimacy is, I'm not coming tonight, and here's a little of what's been going on for me. Shared freely with warmth because you want to. Over-explaining is, I'm not coming tonight, and please understand. I have these 17 reasons, and I know it's inconvenient, and I'm so sorry, and I just need you to believe me. Shared from fear because you feel you must. One comes from connection. The other comes from a place that learned connection has to be earned through proof. A truth worth practicing. No is a complete sentence. Your feelings do not require a bibliography. The people who genuinely respect you do not need a PowerPoint presentation to honor your boundaries. They just need your word. You are allowed to be brief. You are allowed to be unclear. You are allowed to change your mind without filing a formal explanation. You don't have to be cold or unkind, Roide, but you do have to start stepping down from the witness stand. If this hits somewhere real, take a breath. You are not broken. You are not too much. You were trained by circumstances that were not your fault to doubt your own right to take up space. But that training doesn't have to be the rest of your story. Subscribe to the channel. We're going to keep unpacking the psychology behind the hidden habits that quietly run our lives. And drop a comment below. What is the most absurdly small thing you have recently written a massive explanation for? I read every single one, and I promise, you are in much better company than you know. You are allowed to just be, no explanation required.